Welcome to Cloud Dialogues, direct from Vegas. ReInvent 2025 has now come and closed, and you're waving at me, Georgia. And we are
I'm waving at our listeners, I'm not waving at you.
Yeah. We have had a very busy week, and I'm here with Georgia as usual. Hey, Georgia. She was watching ReInvent from afar in London. And we're joined by Michael Walmsley. We're pretty lucky to have Mr. Serverless Hero here today to have a chat about his views. So give us a bit of an intro, Michael, on
Hey,
who you are. What do you do?
My name's Michael Walmsley, obviously, but I work for Accenture. I'm a global technology architect at Accenture. Everyone thinks that means I do consulting, but I don't. I work in an inward-focused product group at Accenture called GenWizard, where we build products. I focus on AWS and AWS Serverless predominantly. So I joined Accenture with the ominous words of, come and teach us how to do serverless. So that's what I've been doing for 4 years. Now I'm a serverless hero. Cool. And that's why I'm at reInvent every year.
Yes. It's a lot, isn't it?
Which is cool, but tiring.
It is. Yeah, we're both here for the community, mostly the community activities, occasional meetings. A lot of people you see once a year, sometimes last year if you're lucky.
It's reInvent's really exciting. And in the Hero program, it's really exciting because often it's the only time that all of the AWS heroes get together, and there's 260 of them globally. So it's quite an amazing group of people. These people are leaders around the world in various technologies, and just learning from them and just swapping ideas is what reInvent for me is all about, more so than also the sessions and new releases.
Cool. So do you know how many people there were attending this year? A number was told to me.
Really? No, I haven't even been listening to numbers, but there was a lot of people. I can safely say there's a lot of people.
Normally at around 60,000, this year at 70. So it was larger. Yeah. I don't think you notice a difference, right? It's just a lot of people. And once you get past a certain, and for scale for listeners, Sydney Summit was like maybe 20,000 this year, which is large. Like some of the big conferences in Vegas don't get that many. So yeah, there's still a lot of fascination around AWS and a lot of people very interested in AWS technologies, and they're still arguably a leader in a lot of areas and caught up a bit on AI as well.
Yeah, that was very evident this year. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So we kicked off a little differently. So back pre-COVID, there used to be a thing called Midnight Madness. Do you remember that, Michael?
No, I've only been I've actually only been to reInvent for the last 4 years. It's my fourth reInvent. So I've only been going post-COVID to reInvent. So I always heard about this mystical Midnight Madness where they'd release one thing at midnight to kick off reInvent.
Not only that, you had to queue up to get into it.
Of course you did. Of course you did. That's what reInvent's all about when you go there in person.
Sunday night, everyone turns up and queues up. I started queuing, but then I heard some people going to a pub, so I went there instead. That was 2019. That was my first reInvent.
So correct me, right? Midnight Madness, what you're talking about here was it more like a keynote at midnight, or was it some sort of party? Or was it?
It was basically, it was like, so at the back of the convention center in the Venetian, where the main hub of reInvent is, there's like huge halls. There's a huge car park. This year, that huge car park was actually the meals hall, but that's the area that the Midnight Madness went in. So everyone, tens of thousands. I'm not sure how many people went there. Say there was 10,000 people.
Yeah.
That went to Midnight Madness. There was a big stage. There was probably giveaways. There would have been swag, and there would have been a key announcement. And this was all I guess they haven't brought it back, but this year they did bring us Midday Madness, which is at a more reasonable time of midday. However, all the activities started then, but it really didn't get going till the end. What was the purpose of Midday Madness, Michael? What was the lead up to it? Where were you?
where was I on leading up to Midday Madness? You say it started at midnight, but it didn't.
No, midday. Yeah.
It didn't
midday.
start at midnight. It didn't start at midday. It started earlier. My journey to reInvent this year was slightly different. I joined something new called the Road to ReInvent. The Road to ReInvent was quite an auspicious event, concocted really late. I thought it was concocted. It was dreamed up really late in the piece. I got a survey back in August about it, and heroes all got a survey about it back in August, and then they went with it. So Road to ReInvent is 50 developers flying to Los Angeles and collecting in a hotel in Los Angeles. And on Sunday, the day of Midday Madness, 9:30 a.m., we put on our jumpsuits and we entered buses, teams of 5. So it was 10 teams of 5 on 5 buses, where we were given a random prompt to create something magnificently impractical for a problem that nobody needs to have solved. And and from that point, we boarded the buses in Los Angeles and we're sitting on buses. So imagine there's 2 teams per bus. The buses were kitted out. So there's the crew in the center of the bus. There was a team at the front, a team at the back. So we had a team at the back of the bus, and teams of 5, really cramped conditions. But we had 5 hours while traveling on the bus. We could only code while traveling on the bus. So the buses physically traveled from Los Angeles to Las Vegas during that time. And it was the whole thing was live streamed. So we were live coding, being live streamed. I'm really curious about what that spectacle looked like from the outside, because I was on the inside, and thank goodness the buses were really nice touring buses and they were kitted out really well. They didn't actually transition motion sickness to anybody that I heard of. So there was zero motion sickness, thank goodness. But I was on a team of 5 and we had to build something magnificently practical. We built a app called LuckyLou.me, and it was a bathroom finder that used AI. It would take a photograph of your face, of your toilet face, and determine how far away you hold on before you had to go. And it would actually find you a restroom at some distance away, but it might be 40, 50 miles. Maybe the face wasn't good enough. So it would also force you to record a message about what you want to do, about how desperate you are. And then that would go off to a swarm of agents. And we had a jury of agents, of AI agents with AWS.
Really, a jury?
Yeah, it was a jury. We had 3. It could be a whole swarm, but we had 3. We had time to build 3 agents that specifically had different aspects, and it had to be a unanimous decision for the jury to allow you to actually get something close enough, depending on what they decided. So if one of them decided you were desperate enough, then you get something far away. Once you've done that, you had a second go. You could actually go try again, and it would give something a little bit closer. But if you really were desperate and the jury was out and wasn't allowing you to, we had some Stripe integration to allow a premium button to be pressed to allow you to
skip the queue.
Our details, and so we could transact one toilet stop, one credit card, just to monetize human dignity.
So I can tell you what it looked like, because I was sitting in the tent in the studio where they were. I don't know. You had Brooke and Farah talking with occasional guests for 5 hours. I'm not sure how you do that, but anyway, occasionally there was feeds of the buses, and they actually put a color overlay, so it would look like it was a dystopian environment. Like, especially, yours was like yellow.
Yeah,
So there was a yellow filter on the video, and the camera person was on the bus with you.
Oh yeah,
And
absolutely. Yeah.
occasionally I'll see like Danielle Upcove go with this camera right in front of her face, and then there'll be you with his camera right in front of your face.
Yeah, so I was a spokesperson for the team, which meant I had to present at the end. So 5 hours of coding, right? At the end, in that madness, in Midday Madness, when we arrived at the end of the day, it was like, this is the last thing of Midday Madness. And each of the teams then had 1 minute, 60 seconds to present to the judges.
Yeah. And the winning team got?
Everything was compressed. The winning team won 100K.
That's 20K per person. Georgia looks stunned.
That was nice.
Yeah.
Look, do you know what? It was really amazing watching the presentation at the end, because I think every team built something pretty cool. Everyone actually got to a really cool spot, which was amazing. So, that there was quality across the board.
What
You
did the
don't feel
winning
too bad.
team build, Michael?
They built an app called Oric, which is Kiros but backwards. So it was like an evil Kiro. They called it Oric, and so it was Kiro from AWS. Kiro is an agentic IDE where you code as you automate coding. You know that. So Oric was an application that is an IDE. It takes 3 lines of code and turns it into 3,000 lines of code.
AI slop.
AI slop. Basically, it will create stupid codes. And you know what? That was very strategic because we knew the judges, especially we knew who the judges were. And Deepak Singh was one of the judges, and Jeff Barr.
Jeff Barr and Swami.
Oh, Swami. Yeah, Swami. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. Too many
I read in
people.
their brain. Yeah, Swami. Swami's going to love anything to do with AI and Kiro. So I think that was very strategic from the Nate routine, who were the winners.
Yes.
But, they were on our bus at the front. And so as the yellow team on the same bus as the winner, I actually consider that we came second.
So that was a good way to kick off the event. There was a big tent, there was food, there was music, there was a big marching band when you guys arrived.
It was.
It was very...
I was excited. Our team got to walk in first because we're the first to present, which was a little bit stressful.
So the rest of the event, what are your thoughts compared to previous years? Do you have any observations?
Look, do you know what? Walking around for the main keynotes and walking around the expo, I'd say there was one word that was said at nearly every booth in the expo.
Yes. That came through in many of the announcements too.
So if you're looking for a theme, the theme was very much beyond, like last year, AWS had to talk about AI, and it was the evolution of Bedrock, the introduction of everything around Bedrock, and because they were slow to the party, they were a lot later to the party than everyone else to the AI world. This year it was more about agents and more about enabling developers to build agents is really my takeaway of the key difference in the language and what's been coming out. And so much so that I've even talked to some of the service teams. I'm involved a little bit with the Lambda Power Tools team, the AWS Lambda Power Tools team, who build the tool chain just to help developers build with Lambda. They're being pushed to do lots more AI as well. So they're AWS are really pushing agentic and AI into every service team as a metric right now is what I'm hearing. So it was very much evident in the outcome at reInvent this year.
And there was Agent Core got a lot of, so Agent Core is AWS's relatively new platform for building production agents, which it really needed because it was the Wild West for the first half of this year.
Yeah.
And Agent Core is changing that up a little bit. There were some announcements around policy, which it really needs really security guardrails. So policy to blocking unauthorized actions, evaluations to inspect the quality of the agent based on its behavior. And because the agents do their own thing, it really is a whole rethink on security.
And it needs to be right. When we talk about agents and security, I think there's a lot of people out there just taking a JOT token from front end of an interaction and passing that through all the way to their end user, to their end third-party systems as a means of authenticating. That's actually exposing your private token externally to your enterprise. And I think it's always been a danger, I think, with agentic security. And I think that's good from what Agent Core are doing is good. And what I love about Agent Core, I haven't dug into Agent Core in a huge way yet, but I'm really excited about it because it's one of those services where you can progressively adopt pieces of Agent Core. You don't have to use the whole thing. You don't have to understand the whole thing to build something. You can actually start progressively. So if you've already building agents somewhere, you can actually start migrating pieces across to the managed service of Agent Core, which I think is really cool. So it reduces that cognitive load of getting on board and getting started, which is cool.
The other thing that I didn't realize was earlier in the year, there was like an AI marketplace. AWS has a marketplace where people sell services, software, SaaS systems, and when you come to think about it, agents can be sold in the same way. And there was a bunch of announcements around vendors selling agents. So one example is Cloud Zero, which is a cost management system for your cloud costs, and they're putting an agent on the store. that's the sort of thing that's coming up, and it makes sense because it's an easy way to transact and get your agents out there. Do you have a favorite announcement?
Just one? You only have to have one. Like as a serverless hero, I'm excited for the Lambda RFAs, right? We've got new Lambda execute compute coming in, right? With Lambda managed instances. And we've got durable functions, which is kind of like step functions. I think if you're wondering what durable functions are, there's other products out there like Restate out there in the market that allow you to do long-term execution of a workflow using code. That's what durable functions are. I'm excited for that one. I think it's going to hit a niche where developers don't want to take that cognitive load of step functions on. I think it's going to hit a really good niche. I think from my experience of talking to enterprise developers, not a lot of enterprise developers like step functions because they like to keep everything in code. So durable functions is that sweet spot. But the one thing I'm really excited about, I've always said that S3 is the cheapest database on the planet.
The S3 is an object store where you can store, all sorts of data objects and stuff.
It is, but I've always said the way they're developing, I think S3 is for the last 2 years, it's the most exciting service on AWS, the way they're developing. And S3 vectors went GA at reInvent. I've seen the preview. I saw the beta. So it's effectively a vector store that allows you to store 20 trillion items. So you can store 20 trillion vectors in one vector bucket. And the cost of querying that is really low. It's 90% saving on other mechanisms of doing vectorized data store, which is astounding. I think that's exciting. I'm excited about that. And the query time for that is less than sub-second for infrequent queries, but for frequent queries, less than 100 millisecond response. And the price, it's dirt cheap.
What's the high level view of what a vector database is for our listeners that might not know what it's used for?
When you think about vector databases or vector stores, really the memory or data that is consumed by AI. So it's a way of systems querying similar items. Vectors do similarity search. So they use LLMs to do embeddings that produce all the vectors. And then as you query, they'll match and do similarity search. And that'll allow across an array of vectors from multiple dimensions to be matched. So that you can really get the like concepts out of that really quickly. And that enables us to add our own custom data to the memory of an LLM. Because the problem with LLMs is they're built by companies like Anthropic, OpenAI, or big companies that make them. And they control the data and the memory. You hear about it being the whole internet, which is alone astounding. But they don't know anything beyond what they're trained on. And that's a problem. That's where vector stores, and we talk about retrieval augmented generation, where we retrieve some extra information using vectors to add that to the context for more accurate data for queries to be answered for. So it allows more custom solutions.
Yeah, around the database stuff, one of those announcements that brings that to the forefront is the CloudWatch Unified Data Store, because CloudWatch is the observability platform on AWS, and now they've put they've basically exposed all the data. So if you think of logs, metrics, all those things that you collect when you're running a service, they expose them in basically an S3 table, which was last year's announcement, S3 tables, which is basically managed Iceberg, but it's all on S3. So it's a very cheap way of being able to query all your data in the one place. And I think it might make it easy for LLMs as well, because it's just all S3 tables is a SQL structure. You got a structured way to query your data. So I think that it's good. So you've got S3 vectors, you've got S3 tables. S3 is really becoming as you say,
the cheapest database on the planet.
Exactly.
I honestly say it is. The announcement for the last 2 years, it's been astounding. And I think that's exciting because everything's as a serverless hero, there's been a whole lot of announcements around different services, open source serverless.
Still expensive.
A, it's expensive, and B, it's serverless to me means that it's a managed service that scales to zero. And open source serverless does not, as we know, scale to zero. And it's expensive. The vCPU pricing is great. It automatically scales, but the minimum cost, you're looking for a very small open source service. You're paying quite a lot per month for the servers, where S3, all you're paying is for S3 data storage, which we know is already the cheapest storage on the planet.
Yeah. I know. So there's a lot of good announcements. I've already said a couple of them. The most surprising one for me was the new AWS Interconnect service. So this is for enterprises. Traditionally, AWS has been very anti-multi-cloud. If you think back in the 2010s, multi-cloud was a bad word. Like you couldn't say it. And I did some research, and around 2019, things started to change. Their multi-cloud was about bringing things from Google, from Azure into their platform. That was their version of multi-cloud. And it was only last year that Jeff Barr actually had a blog around that actually said multi-cloud, which changed things a little bit. And they've realized that there actually is a need for the other providers. And in the enterprise, whenever I go to a client, there's always AWS and Google, AWS and Azure. Sometimes you get all three.
Every enterprise on the planet has more than one cloud. Let's be real. It's how they operate, right? It's endemic. There are biases and likes within places within enterprises. So you naturally get Accenture. We do all the clouds. All of them. Azure, Google, AWS. I know we do Alley Cloud in some places. We do work in China. So there's Alley Cloud. There's IBM Cloud, the IBM Cloud, all the Red Hat stuff is
Oracle.
Oracle as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So
and what people have done, sometimes there's really hacky networking workarounds to get that to work. So there might be VPNs between clouds to get that networking going. There could be a dogleg back to on-prem to the other cloud. And all those solutions come with operational overhead, and they're pretty much not great, especially if you need to transfer a large amount of data. And normally if you're using multi-cloud, you've got a big data store somewhere that you're doing work on. You might do a whole heap of Gen AI or data work on Google, and your infrastructure stuff might be on AWS. There needs to be a way to connect those up. And this service, basically what this service is pretty much a 1-2 click process to connect from AWS to Google. That was the release cloud. And that's like a high-speed link. I think they're starting at 1 gig, but it'll go higher. And during the preview, it's free. So everyone can try it. Don't route your production.
Of course they want you to try it. It's like the first one's all.
Unfortunately, there's no pricing, so we don't know actually what the pricing will look like. And we all know what AWS like around networking pricing, don't we? They like to make it a little bit complex.
Well, yeah, true. It's going to be interesting, but at least it gives them time for enterprises and companies around the world to try it out, and they can monitor what kind of throughput happens, so they can get realistic pricing, which is good. And hopefully it's not too, like you say though, it's premium service, and not sure if it is really. I think Google tried to do this years ago. They had a similar product for, I think it was Kubernetes, to allow Kubernetes to talk between clouds, but that never really took off. I forget what it's called. But so it's been tried before. So it'd be really interesting to see what the other clouds do with this announcement from AWS. It'd be really interesting to see.
Azure is also on the roadmap for 2026. So they've already got plans for both the major competitors or co-operators or whatever word it is. And the other interesting thing when I looked into it is that there's an API. So any CSP can potentially get on this. So you might see other ones as well. So I think they want to make it a kind of de facto standard to connect the clouds.
Which is good. I think that's a great thing, because I've always been on the bandwagon of each of the clouds has a particular thing which is really useful to use. That we find out with our customers, like Accenture. So we're doing a lot of AI, and OpenAI is something we use a lot of. And I know our platform teams had spent a lot of time securing links between AWS and Azure to allow us to consume OpenAI from all the clouds effectively. So there's a lot of work that goes into that. So interconnect is going to be interesting from that perspective.
Oh yeah, it's fully encrypted as well.
Yeah,
so, everything's fully managed, fully encrypted. So using the private networking. Yeah, I thought that was good. Yeah. Anything else you want to cover before we close out?
The other thing I'm excited about is Kiro. I'm excited.
yeah.
I'm excited. I was on Road to ReInvent, so I've been using
You're-
Kiro. Kiro have released, they've got two things. They've got a couple of things coming. Kiro Powers as well was released recently. Kiro Powers is really interesting. So we know that when you plug in configuration into your IDE, the more you plug in, the bigger the context for the AI is within that IDE and the less accurate it gets. When we start plugging MCP servers to provide more data or information to coding agents, and also steering files and hooks, which are the things that Kiro, so hooks from a Kiro perspective are actions that happen after a file changes. So you can do things like run all my tests or update my documentation. They're just standard little things that run as autonomous little agents in the background while you're changing code. Steering files guide the Kiro agent to understand how you want to build. So it's basically your, what I call architecture governance as code. That's what I call it. It's about how you build and what you build and the quality you want to build to and what you need, what the agent needs to aspire to. Test-driven, if it's test-driven design, or if it's everything has to be, there's no errors or warnings. We want all tests to be passing. The Kiro Powers wraps all of these things up into a module with an overarching description. And what that means is you can plug all these Kiro Powers into Kiro, but they're not active until AI determines they need to be active, which is really interesting. So AI can now choose to go, oh, we're doing TypeScript, so let's go and use a TypeScript power. Or there's a few powers out there. There's a GitHub that anyone can actually put configurations together for, which is interesting. So I think that's a really interesting reach around to try and tackle that problem of too large a context in IDE coding agents. So I think that's interesting.
Yeah. And I thought Kiro, the fact that, so for those that don't know, Kiro is a coding application, similar Cursor, similar Copilot, all those different ones. It's AWS's take, and it's got pretty much zero AWS branding on it. There might be a mention of AWS on the website, but
Amazon Q.
And Amazon Q is the less about that, the better.
Because we all know that everything that came out this year from AWS around AI was all under the single brand umbrella of,
and that's confusing.
Amazon Q for business, Amazon Q for QuickSight, Amazon Q for the console, Amazon Q for developer, Amazon Q CLI. And some of those products were really good and some of them were not so good. When they released Amazon Q in the console, it was terrible. And so you'd partner Amazon Q with the bad experience you had with console, and that would carry through to every other product because Amazon Q is everyone just starts saying Amazon Q is terrible. And people go,
not using that.
Which Amazon Q is that?
Or they'll just say, I'm not using it because it's terrible. Yeah. So the rebranding is good.
Yeah, it
They've
is.
thrown out all of that. They've thrown out all the Q branding.
I think they've kept some of the business side, I think.
Yeah.
But I don't know how long for.
Some of it's hanging around, but Amazon Q developer CLI has already moved to Kiro CLI. So Kiro is the umbrella now for agentic coding for AWS,
which is a good cuter. It sounds much
cuter.
It is.
It's got a cute little, it's a little ghost. Have you seen the logo? No.
Yeah, it's a cute little ghost. And look, AWS have really been, their marketing team has really done a lot of work this year. There's been a lot of hackathons. The Road to ReInvent had 100K up for grabs for the winning team, which is huge. But they've done that multiple times. They've had, Kiroween is just finished on Friday. They did a Kiroween. Yeah, it's called Kiroween. It started in Halloween. It started. Kiro's the ghost. Kiro's the ghost. So they had a hackathon called Kiroween.
So cute. That's so cute.
There's 30, 40, 50K up for grabs, and that's across multiple categories. So there's multiple winners. So developers out there should watch out for these hackathons because there's money to be made.
Yes, that is true.
But it will be taxed. It'll be taxed by the US government and taxed by your government.
Yeah. You might get $5 at the end. It was worth it.
It was fun.
Everyone wants their cut. All right. Thank you for coming on, Michael. We really appreciate your time, and you're probably a little bit slightly more tired than me. We've both got a cancelled flight that we've had to deal with. The rest of today is going to be very interesting.
Do you know what? I've just got to get through the next 2 days.
Yeah.
You'll survive.
Yes.
That's it. And fall in a heap at the other end.
That's right. Cool. Thank you. Thank you for your time. Thanks, Georgia.
Appreciate it.
And we'll see you all next time. Thanks for listening.
Bye.